Tax rates in the Philippines have been unfavorable to the Filipino workers due to their insufficient incomes and unjustified low-quality public services na nakukuha sa government. That's why the government aimed to redesign our tax system to be simpler, fairer, and more efficient for all. In short, to rationalize the tax system of the country. Kaya naman, pinapros ng government ang Republic Act number 10963 or the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion or TRAIN law. So, why do I feel that they are morally wrong, or why is TRAIN law morally wrong? Because it has an unequal impact to lower income households. TRAIN law decreases personal income tax. However, it increases passive income tax. It also increases the taxes on the goods and services in which most of the low-income households mainly consume, such as yung fuel, electricity, food items, mga pagkain, mga delata at yung mga bigas. Therefore, it also increases the value-added tax to these products. As an effect, it is found that TRAIN law worsened the Philippine poverty. While this law aims to improve the overall tax system of the country, it did not thoroughly consider the case of the low-income households. Thus, this law is socially unjust because it focuses on the advancement or the betterment of the people in the middle class and the rich ones, but they did not thoroughly consider the situation and the case of the one in the lower class. So, to what extent would you feel justified in breaking these laws? I would feel justified breaking TRAIN law when it is necessary to prevent it from worsening. It is justified when an individual unintentionally can no longer afford to comply with the taxes indicated in the law without going penniless. So it is okay to break the law unintentionally kapag yung tao or yung individual hindi na kayang mag-afford na mag-pay ng taxes without going penniless or without going to be able to buy expenses, buy his needs. So, it is also justified when an individual unintentionally breaks the law to seek for a better improvement or movement, such as the non-violent protest, in which the situation of the low income would be strengthened rather than threatened. To what extent would I feel prepared, as king was, to pay the penalties demanded of the one who breaks the law? As this law provided minimal changes and improvement to the society in which we got to the point of breaking it, I will be prepared to pay penalties, as long as severe injustice is visible and there is a need for a change. Although paying penalties is not directly the way for a change, the act of breaking the law can be seen, which will awaken and encourage others not to break the law, but to resist and demand for a better one, such as the non-violent protest.
So, the unjust vexation law under Article 287 of the Revised Penal Code. So, the legal definition and scope of the unjust vexation is broadly defined, and the legal system leaves its interpretation to the discretion of the courts. Acts that may be considered unjust vexation can range from stalking and offensive gestures to more aggressive behaviors, provided they do not qualify to graver offenses like assault or harassment. Penalties and sentencing. Once convicted of unjust vexation, the offender can be subjected to arresto minor, which means imprisonment for a period of 1 day to 30 days, or a fine ranging from 5 pesos to 200 pesos, or both, at the discretion of the court. The sentence may vary based on the circumstances of the case and any aggravating or mitigating factors. So, why is it morally wrong? Eto, so bilang isang college student, gusto kong i-analyze yung batas ng unjust vexation. Tapos i-express yung opinion ko kung bakit tingin ko ay mali yun. So, ang unjust vexation law sa ilang jurisdictions, nagpapataw nga ng parusa para sa nakakaitang kilos na hindi umabot sa physical harm or threat. Ang moral objection dito ay dahil sa subjective nature ng annoyance or irritation, walang clear at walang clear at objective na criteria ang batas. Kaya prone ito sa abuse at selective enforcement. Ang isang tao kung anong nakakairita sa kanya, baka hindi nakakairita sa iba. Kaya pwedeng gamitin ang batas para sa pang-abuso ng legal authority. At dahil sa broad scope ng batas, pwedeng maparusahan ang hindi harmful na actions o kaya gagamitin ito para sa harassment o control. Sa madaling salita, ang ambiguity at potential for misuse ng batas ay nag-undermine ng justice at fairness. So, yun din, ang justification ng paglalabag kasi sa batas ay dapat talaga pinag-iingatan natin eh. Dahil yung isang society ay dependent sa respect sa legal frameworks. Pero kung tunay na naniniwala ka na mali at hindi makaturungan ng batas, pwedeng isaalang-alang ang civil disobedience. Sorry. Sa kaso ng unjust vexation law, kung ang behavior ay walang pinsala at falls under sa vague na definitions ng annoyance, pwede kang maging justified na peacefully challenge or disregard ang batas para ipakita ang protesta na perceived injustice. Kasi din, yung pagiging handa sa harapin ng penalties para sa civil disobedience ay crucial at guided dapat by commitment sa principles tulad ng sabi nga ni Thoreau from his book na Civil Disobedience, dapat ka handang tanggapin ang consequences. Alam mo na ginagawa mo ito para sa mas just at equitable na legal system. So, yun nga, in summary, ang unjust taxation law dahil sa subjective nature at potential for abuse raises moral concerns. Well, dapat maingat ang approach sa civil disobedience. Pwede maging justified ang paglalabag kung maniniwala ka na lumalabag ito sa principles ng justice at freedom. Ang extent ng pagiging handa mo sa consequences ay nagre-reflect ng depth ng commitment mo sa pagsabay laban sa perceived injustice.
Good day, everyone. I am John Alfred C. Reambon, and for this discussion on the letter from Birmingham Jail of Martin Luther King Jr., I will be basing on the distinction set forth by him in the said selection, whereby just laws uphold human dignity and the moral order, while those that are unjust are those that degrade individuals and have no regard for their humanity. I would argue that the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 is an unjust law. I feel that I am not alone in the series of discussions to have considered it so. And with that, I believe that we recognize that it truly deserves to be thoroughly reviewed, as its controversy may be deemed as our innate moral responsibility, calling us to see that it is an unjust law. So the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, RA 11479, it is an act to prevent, prohibit, and penalize terrorism, thereby repealing Republic Act number 9372, otherwise known as the Human Security Act of 2007. So in its declaration of policy in section 2, it declares that a policy of the state is to protect life, liberty, and property from terrorism, to condemn terrorism as inimical and dangerous to the national security of the country and to the welfare of the people, and to make terrorism a crime against the Filipino people, against humanity, and against the law of nations. I agree that this is an integral policy to uphold. However, how it is implemented in the law is what puts it into question. The Supreme Court has already deemed two of its provisions unconstitutional, specifically the provisions considering protests a crime if it has the intent or it deems it having the intent of causing harm, and to allowing the Anti-Terror Council, which it will form, to act upon requests from outside entities, outside third parties, to designate an individual as a terrorist. However, despite this ruling, the law remains flawed and open to abuse by government authorities. I concur with Amnesty International with their statement that the law will continue to pose a threat to human rights defenders, activists, as well as members of marginalized groups and others who are wrongly accused of terrorism by granting the government excessive and unchecked powers and being susceptible to arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement. So, in other words, to simply put my view on this law, I fear that the law is just a tool for abusive powers in government to justify getting rid of dissent, which is directed towards them, so that they could continue with their abuse of power. With this, in the interest of well, what is stated in our Constitution, in our Bill of Rights, of our right to freedom of speech, of expression, and to peaceably assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances, if I ever find myself at odds with this law, I am prepared to pay its penalties. That is all. Thank you very much for listening.